I'm joined now by Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia. We appreciate you joining us this morning.
Great to be here with you. Good to be in the area.
Now, one of the very important things that is going on in Albany and across the nation, unfortunately, we've had a lot of fatal shootings. In Albany, we have had 3 people killed in the last week with 2 separate shootings. And you have taken a stand about gun violence and had some recent talks about that.
Well, gun violence, as we all know, is a real problem in our country. And we've had over 40,000 gun deaths just this year alone. When you talk about mass shootings, we've had almost twice as many mass shootings as we've had days this year, not to mention the slow rolling crisis of the kind of one-on-one violence that you see. And so the question that we ought to be asking ourselves as Americans is, why is it that this doesn't happen anywhere else? No other country that's not engaged in warfare do we see this level of gun violence. We are awash in guns. The glimmer of hope is that ordinary people on the left and the right, I'm talking about people, not politicians, both Democrats and Republicans, would like to see action on this. For example, a recent poll indicated that 87% of Americans, all Americans, would like to see common sense background checks for the ownership of a firearm. And yet we can't get movement on this in Congress. It suggests to me that increasingly the people's voices have been squeezed out of their democracy. And so I'm focused on getting reasonable gun safety measures passed, like background checks and closing the loopholes around gun shows and online purchases, which again, nearly 90% of Americans support. But what we've got to do is somehow loose the stranglehold of the dark money and the special interests that are stopping us from getting the progress that Americans deserve. If we can't do what's basic to government, protect our families and protect our children, what are we doing? Certainly we can do better than telling our children in the wake of one mass shooting after another that the best we can do is to teach you how to hide. Really? Politicians need to stop hiding and pass common sense gun safety legislation.
Because the First Amendment is there, there's a lot of facets to it, and crime, people want to see themselves to be protected, but also they don't want to see people being killed every day in the streets.
Absolutely. Look, we support people being able to hunt, people being able to protect themselves, to have a firearm in their homes. That's not the issue. The issue is that we need common sense gun safety. There's no use for assault military style weapons on ordinary streets. And if you say, as some do, that it's not guns that kill people, it's people who kill people, why wouldn't you want basic background checks so at least we know who the people are? And we don't have people with a criminal history, people who are dangerous, or people who struggle with mental illness, unnecessarily endangering themselves and others. We can do better than this, and I won't rest until we get common sense gun safety passed.
Now, another important issue to people right now is the obviously the military is a big part of it. You're going to tour MCLB Albany today while you're visiting here, and you've toured all the other military bases around Georgia. You said preparing for the Senate military funding bills. So what's the future of military in Georgia? What do you want to see done, especially involving MCLB Albany?
Well, we got to make sure that we maintain readiness. And Georgia is a military state. 1 out of 10 Georgians is connected in some way to the military. And so I spend a lot of time on our bases, and a little bit later I'm going to visit the Marine Corps Logistics Base. I've been fighting for Georgia priorities in the authorization of the defense bill, and I'm trying to make sure that we support our service members. The people who fight for us shouldn't have to fight with us to get what is basic. And so I'm proud of the fact that I've been pushing to get about $100 million of infrastructure funding for the Marine base right here in the area. Another thing I've been very focused on is making sure that our service members have the basic kind of housing that they need. What's called the base allowance for housing has been woefully inadequate, so I've been pushing to get that increased so service members, whether they're on the base or off the base, can actually afford housing. Also in this defense reauthorization package, there's about a 5% pay raise for our service members on top of the 2% raise that we did last year. I think it's only right and fair, and I'll keep fighting, and I won't rest until we get it over the finish line.
It's very important to have the military build up right now because there are 2 wars going on across the world, and I know, do you feel like the U.S. military needs to be built up right now to be ready in case of the worst?
Well, listen, there is no replacement for American leadership on the globe. War is something we don't want to see, but it's a dangerous neighborhood out there. And when you look at what's happening in Israel, a kind of heinous attack on October 7th, we've got to be able to support our ally while at the same time providing humanitarian aid to Palestinian families and children where we've seen such devastation. And when you look at what's going on in Ukraine, people who are listening and watching me need to be clear that Ukraine is not just about Ukraine. It's about security in Europe, and ultimately it's about our own national security. Putin is a very dangerous man, and if he's able to run roughshod over Ukraine, he won't stop there. He'll challenge another one of our countries in our NATO alliance, and we're sworn to protect members of NATO. War against one is war against others. I'd much rather provide Ukraine the support that they need now in terms of funding, rather than having to find ourselves putting American boots on the ground because we did not stand up in this defining moment.
Important time in our lives. We wish you a Merry Christmas. Thank you very much for joining us, Senator Raphael Warnock of Georgia.
Good to be here. Merry Christmas, everybody.